Today's episode is brought to you by the Daily Gardener Friday newsletter. You can subscribe to the newsletter over at thedailygardener.org. Hi there, and welcome to The Daily Gardener, a podcast about garden history and literature. I'm Jennifer Ebling, and today is March 7th. Today in garden history, we celebrate the birth of Luther Burbank. He was an American botanist and horticulturist, and he was born on this day, March 7th, in 1849. During his 55-year career, Luther developed over 800 varieties of plants. He's remembered for many plant creations, including the Shasta daisy and the white blackberry. A russet-colored variant of a Luther potato became the world's predominant potato in food processing. It was called the russet Burbank potato. Luther hoped that his potato would revive Ireland's potato production after late blight destroyed potatoes across Europe. Luther once said, "Flowers always make people better, happier, and more helpful. They are sunshine, food, and medicine to the mind." And it was on this day, March 7th, in 1858, that Robert Fortune left for his fourth trip to China. Months earlier, Robert had sent thousands of tea seeds to the United States. But the Americans didn't feel that they needed Robert's help to cultivate the plants, although the distribution of the little seedlings wasn't very strategic. Most of the seeds and plants were distributed through members of Congress from southern states who sent the little tea plants home to their farming constituents. James Ryan of South Carolina wrote, "In the fall of 1859, I received from the Patent Office in Washington a very tiny tea plant, which I placed in my flower garden as a curiosity. It has grown well, has always been free from any disease, has a full outdoor exposure, and attained a height of 5 feet 8 inches. There cannot be the least doubt but that the tea plant will flourish in South Carolina." 2 years later, the start of the Civil War derailed those early hopes for tea production in the United States. And it was on this day, March 7th, in 1865, that Edmund Hope Verney received a letter. By this point, Edmund had been botanizing in Vancouver Island for 3 years. All throughout his expedition, Edmund was gobsmacked by the beauty of the Vancouver landscape, especially during spring. He had written, "I cannot believe that any part of the world can show a greater variety and number of wildflowers than this." As much as he could, Edmund sent specimens back home to Claydon in England. Occasionally, he would get discouraged if he didn't hear back, sometimes not even a thank you. But on this day, March 7th in 1865, Edmund's stepmother wrote with words of praise. She wrote, "Your seeds are excellent, just what we wanted. The colony is celebrated for its pines and cypresses. The bishop says bulbs, too. If possible, perhaps you can bring some with you. And all lilies are valuable." It's time to grow that garden library with today's book, The Art and Science of William Bartram by Judith McGee. This book came out in 2007, and it's one of the best authoritative books on William Bartram. William was an eminent artist and naturalist, and he was one of the first people to explore the flora and fauna of the American Southeast between 1773 and 1777. Bartram's work was sent to his patron back in London, and today the London Natural History Museum houses most of William Bartram's drawings. Judith's book showcased for the first time all 68 Bartram drawings from the Natural History Museum, along with other pieces from his contemporaries. This book also shares some of Bartram's writings and letters, proving that Bartram was not only influential during his lifetime, but also a beacon for the next generation of American naturalists. Bartram's work had an impact beyond the world of science. Wordsworth, Coleridge, and other writers found the significance of Bartram's drawings and writing a source of inspiration, especially in light of the fact that he was entirely self-taught. Bartram's humility and compassion made it possible for him to spend time with Native Americans during his explorations. He also became an authority on the birds of North America. In 1773, William collected and propagated seeds from the Franklinia, or the Franklin tree. The tree survives today thanks to the work of William Bartram. This book is 276 pages of William Bartram's life and contributions in the context of modern scientific thinking. You can get a copy of The Art and Science of William Bartram by Judith McGee and support the show using the Amazon link in today's show notes for around $46. Finally, today's Botanic Spark features Kurt Blumell. It was on this day, March 7th, back in 2001, that the Baltimore Sun shared a story called Maryland's Mr. Grass Plantsman, Kurt Blumell, by Nancy Taylor Robson. Here's an excerpt. Nurseryman and landscaper Kurt Blumell had dealt with groundhogs, rabbits, and rapacious deer, but nothing in his career prepared him for the destructive powers of elephants and giraffes. They are like organic lawnmowers, he said. Kurt Blumell, the company, is one of the largest, most extensive wholesale growers of ornamental grasses in the country, which is why 6 years ago, in 1995, the Disney company asked him to help design, supply, and plant the 125 acres of savanna at its new animal kingdom in Florida. Kurt assumed that the animals would graze the landscape, so he was careful to avoid poisonous plants. But Kurt was unprepared for the voraciousness of their grazing. Kurt said, "We planted acacias. They have very long thorns as part of the permanent landscape, but the giraffes ate them down to the ground, thorns and all. Another surprise was the soil, or lack of it." Kurt said, "Florida only has sand. It's like hydroponic growing. And as soon as you stop giving things water and fertilizer, they stop growing. But with food and water, in 3 months, the vegetation was unbelievable. We miscalculated planting distances as a result." Kurt died of cancer in 2014 at the age of 81. He was known as Mr. Grass and the King of Grasses after a lifetime spent championing ornamental grasses and perennials to bring nature, movement, and vibrancy to the landscape. Well, that's it for today's show. Just remember that you have a standing invitation to join the free Facebook group for listeners of the show. The next time you're over at Facebook, just search for Daily Gardener Community, where you'd search for a friend and then request to join. And if you'd like more of The Daily Gardener, you can subscribe to the newsletter over at thedailygardener.org. And don't forget that you can also show your support for the show by using the Buy Me a Coffee link over at the website or in today's show notes. This is Jennifer Ebling. Thanks for listening to The Daily Gardener. And remember, for a happy, healthy life, garden every day. Hi there, Daily Gardeners. I just wanted to let you know that I will be speaking at the Friends of the State Botanical Garden of Georgia annual meeting in Athens, Georgia on March 25th at 7 p.m. And there's a reception before this event at 6:30. Anyway, this is their 50th anniversary, and I'll be giving a presentation on some of the women who influenced botanical illustration and who created marvelous botanical porcelain art, which is now truly a dying art. In fact, in the United States, there are no longer any porcelain studios in operation. All of the beam studios have closed. And so these pieces are only going to become more scarce and more precious over time. Now, in Athens, there is a brand new porcelain and decorative arts museum at the Center for Art and Nature, and it's right next to the Visitor Center at the Botanical Garden of Georgia. This porcelain and decorative arts museum houses the collection of Dean Day Sanders, a passionate gardener and art collector with an extensive concentration in botanical porcelain. And so this museum is special because it's the first of its kind to integrate decorative arts in a garden setting to celebrate nature. Now, if you decide that you'd like to be at this event, all you need to do is check today's show notes or the Facebook group, the Daily Gardener community over at Facebook, or the newsletter, because I'll put links to this event in all of those places. And if you do register, let me know, because it would be fun to have some Daily Gardeners in the audience. I'm going to have a little bit of free time, and it would be great to connect with you. We could tour the gardens together, have a little meet and greet, grab a coffee, etc. Anyway, it would be great to get to see you there. We'll celebrate these wonderful botanical artists, see the beautiful botanical porcelain, and get a chance to hang out. What could be better? So one more time, the meeting is on March 25th on a Friday at 7 p.m. Hope to see you there.